So excited to have everybody here. I think we can kick things off with a few housekeeping and introductions and then dive into it.
Yep. So thank you everyone again for joining us. Today is our webinar with some amazing speakers. We'll be discussing the state of community and advocacy and also helping give you a roadmap for success here. And so for today, I will go through the housekeeping items. So as always, this will be recorded and we will be sharing the recording after. If you do have any questions, please submit them in the Q&A box. Chat is fine as well, but it'd be easier for me to monitor if you do it directly into the chat Q&A box there. And then I also wanted to give you a little bit of an overview of the agenda so that everyone's aligned on what we'll be going over today. And so first things, obviously, we'll be introducing the speakers, their background, the topic, and I'll let Gal dive into that, but we'll be covering today's landscape. We'll be covering the challenges that teams are encountering, whether internally or externally, and that'll be a fun discussion there. And then the roadmap for success in terms of just, what are our thoughts and high-level advice for how can we build a better future? How can we build a better team? How can we build better collaboration so that we are successful? And so outside of that, we'll also leave some Q&A. And so there's not much else here, but if you have any questions, again, feel free to drop them into the chat. And that's kind of it for my housekeeping items. I will give the rest to Gal. Yeah, let me stop sharing my screen.
Thank you, Chia. And this is so exciting. We have, a rock star panel here. I'm so excited to be joined by Stef, Amy, Tiffany, and our two own Rona and Chia. I'm in an event in San Francisco today, so I'm going to drop like in 20 minutes. My apologies, but I did want to kind of be able to at least kick off this discussion because I think it's super exciting to have a few of these thought leaders with us and talking through the future of customer marketing, the future of advocacy, what people should think about as they think about their programs, as they think about their platforms. We'll talk a little bit also about migrating from platforms such as Influitive. All three panelists have been Influitive customers and users. Some of them have also done the migration, but that's kind of what we want to cover today. So let's start just with a quick introduction to our panelists. Then I'll dive in a little bit of an introduction to base, and we'll kick off with some Q&A. And just feel free, like Gia said, to put questions in the Q&A. We really want to keep this interactive. So I guess where are we going to start with? Stephanie, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Stef Porter. I've spent over 20 years in the customer advocacy and reference space. I've both launched and also managed customer advisory boards, reference programs, content programs, and advocate communities at companies both large and small. So this couple of places I've done this include Amdocs, Oracle, and Hewlett-Packard Enterprise.
And I'll go next. I'm Tiffany Hancher. I also have about 20 years experience in advocacy and loyalty program design and management. Most recently, I was working with Base really closely on an award-winning program that we had in the tech industry called Rewards at VMware at Broadcom. And so I'm really excited to be a speaker today. Thank you.
Hi, and I'm Amy Friedman, and I have over 15 years experience in the advocacy customer marketing space and over 25 years in the marketing space. I too have worked on references, communities, advocacy programs, content creation across the board. Most recently, I was at Workday, so for the last 9 years, and I also have the experience in much smaller organizations.
And Rona, for those who don't know you by any chance.
Hey, I'm Rona, Head of Customer Programs and Customer Success at Base. Been at Base for over 5 years now, so I've seen many implementations and different programs. So excited to be here today and talk to you all.
Super. Okay, so first of all, I mean, I do invite all of you to join our jam. We have webinars every month. We have this month at the end of April, we're planning one specifically around AI and some of the acquisitions that Base has done. I'm going to talk to you about how AI influences CMA. I'm kind of thinking about it as CMAI, but my own idea there. And then we're also inviting you all to join Obsession 25. We have the dates, so first of all, save the date. Secondly, it's a open call for speakers. If you want to speak at the event, reach out to us and let us know. Then, there's a lot of webinars, recorded webinars. Here are 2 examples down here, and we have many of them. We also had one webinar on Halloween. We called it Switching Isn't Scary with Influitive customers. So there's a lot of webinars. You can just listen to recorded webinars and Obsessions, recorded sessions from Obsession. And then, just, sign up for our newsletter and other updates. So would love to kind of have you join a lot of what we're doing for the industry. With the industry, we've just, finished our 2025 Top 100 campaign. Hopefully some of the Top 100s are with us today. Some of them are speakers as well. And then just as an introduction, high level to Base. Base is a customer marketing platform. We have, over 100 customers, and these are some of the logos you can see there. But the main thing for us is really, we think of customer marketing and advocacy as a very holistic approach to customer engagement. We want to help companies run advocacy programs, CABs, loyalty programs, even for people who are outside of the advocacy, references, lifecycle marketing such as upsell, cross-sell, expansion, referral marketing, and so on. Be that system for post-sale engagement with your customers and help you succeed with that. And, we've been continuously supporting customers. We've been the best, in category customer success for over 3 years now. And, also securing the platform with enterprise-grade kind of security and elements. And big difference for us is we think of the platform and everything that you do in kind of 3 pillars. There's what, some, if we have, for example, advocacy and Influitive customers, what they would define as the advocacy hub. We call it, experience hub, or how you engage with your customers. And a hub is just one way. You can also do in-app messaging, email, text, like omni-channel approach. You can meet them in another community, meet them inside the product, meet them as part of their journey in the LMS. We kind of think about the experience a little bit more holistically and give you a lot of ways to engage. Then, there's elements around how do we let the entire organization know about that? We live inside CRM. We allow them to search it in Slack. We want your sellers, your other marketing teams, your product teams to be able to leverage everything that you've done in your advocacy programs and your customer programs. And kind of in the middle, there's your, management console where you go and kind of can run your campaigns, review things, approve, and so on. And the idea really is to allow you to know as much as we can share about the account, the contact, and see that and understand that in a way that is much simpler for you to find advocates, to pick people for the right actions. And then also the system today with AI can recommend, hey, instead of running a general challenge to all your customers or ask or campaign, why not, focus on these customers for an upsell campaign because they're ready for it, and turn these community members into advocates, and maybe take these, customers who are early customers in their adoption journey and make sure they finish certification and so on, and eventually tie it all to revenue and show how we can actually influence how your programs influence revenue and help the business grow. Because it's very important for you to show your success so you can actually, in this day and age, actually show the value of these programs and keep the team and the jobs, which we see a lot of flux in the market. This is just one example from NICE, who's one of our customers, been with us for 2 years now. But this is an example from, year 2, so 24 was their year number 2. 25 is actually year number 3 now. But I mean, in 6 months, they got, 75,000, ask his challenges or activities completed, and, increase in satisfaction score, 100% of the references fulfilled. So many like goals that they hit. And it's first of all, because they're a great team and they run a great program. But we'd like to think that it's also because we created an environment for their customers to engage in a better way. And these are some of the examples of those environments. You can see different designs and different communities. Base really wants to, keep your brand, but also keep this period of engagement in the way that works for you, including in-app, including communities, including things like discussions, and of course also member member one-on-one communications, group communications, so peer networking in many different ways and so on. And yeah, and of course, cherry on top is everything can be gamified, everything can be, rewarded. You can do smart rewards. We're not big on transactional rewards. We think that rewards should be smart, based on tiers, based on things they do. But base allows you to do so many different things in rewards, including reward people for community activity and courses they finish, product activity, coming to an event. So rewarding on activities outside of the hub, not just activities inside the hub. And with that, I'll talk a little bit about AI, and then we should start our discussion. So hey, AI is changing everything, but we think it's changing a lot for marketers and customer marketers. Imagine, having an AI-based score that helps you know, hey, this customer is doing great. The account is doing great. They're super active in the community. They're active in the product. They're active advocates. Or the trend is not so great, and we need to think what we're doing there. But how can you track and visually see on an individual and account level? That's what AI helps us do inside Base. And also, how can you kind of save your time? Guys, you're busy. You have a lot to do. You should focus on, relationships. So maybe create asks faster with AI. Maybe repurpose content with AI. Things like, be able to have recommendation. Hey, enroll these customers to these campaigns with AI. Create on-the-fly reference pages with AI, and so on. So these are some of the things that we believe that AI is going to help all of you kind of scale faster and kind of do much more. Hopefully, with these tools. So with that, I think that was a little bit of an introduction to Base, but I really want to dive into what we want to talk today. And I'll kick off maybe with just a very open question to all our panelists around what is the state of customer marketing, customer advocacy today? What is changing? What are we seeing changing in the ways that managers, many of you have led teams, the way that managers think about advocacy programs, the way that leadership thinks about these programs, and where do we think this is going in 25, 26? Maybe it's a big question, and also like how is AI influencing all of this? But yeah, I'll stop there. And anybody can answer.
All right.
I can kick off.
Okay,
Go
go
ahead,
ahead.
Amy.
So your question really is quite big, and I do believe that AI has such a big piece of it. So I think we've noticed a trend, and this isn't just in the customer advocacy space, but really across the board, where teams that might have been larger are getting much leaner. There's that sense of, okay, let's take out a middle management layer, which means you constantly need to be able to do, more with less. So I would say from a tactical standpoint, right? Having tools like Base, having tools like Base or with AI, or built into the solution. And if you don't have a solution like Base, even for your content creation, AI is going to be this huge piece for you, right? It is going to be that time saver. It is going to help you with content creation, repurposing things like transcripts and make quotes and things like that. And from a more of a macro standpoint, I think that and what I'm seeing is you need to be able to wear that tactical hat, but also a strategic hat. You have to be able to up-level the message and the value of customer advocacy and customer marketing to and having an executive stakeholder, some buy-in. And the role, which may have been considered a somewhat more of you can say, oh, we're located in marketing, for example, and it could be very siloed. It's gotten more important that customer advocacy take the lead, because I don't see it as much coming from customer success from the teams I've worked with, to drive customer experience. That it's anybody who has these touch points we're all part of a larger team with all these customer touch points, and we need to be part of the journey, which applies to all of us. And I have found that customer advocacy is having a really pivotal role because we sit at the center of so many of those interactions, and we deal with the product team and support and customer success and sales and marketing. And it's almost like from our vantage point, we really see the value in having a more of a virtual team or integrating those things together. And that's just my first take on that.
You actually touched on exactly what I was going to say, which was really about customers are expecting a seamless experience, but not only that, they really want to make sure that we're taking into account all the things that we're presenting to them and that value-driven experience. And if we don't make that shift, then we have a risk of losing them.
Agreed. And what, sorry, I was pushing a button and it just wasn't happening. When we talked about, Amy, you mentioned, having the different, or having sort of an agreed upon customer journey. And Tiffany, you nailed it with getting it right. And it's, a lot of people can and should be able to reach out to customers, but it does need to be coordinated with that agreed approach by everybody to have a consistent experience. And I think it's also really critical that everybody involved in those touch points needs to be able to see and understand what everyone else is doing. And that's really how you avoid chaos with the customers. Sometimes control can go a little bit too far and you start seeing these little fiefdoms popping up. And that's, control is important, but not to the point where no one else can get through. So that's also not a good customer experience. So there just needs to be balance and coordination. And that's harder than just doing it yourself, but it's absolutely critical if the customer experience is important to you. And that's also where an all-in-one solution can help.
Great. So Steph, now with the trends that we're seeing around customer marketing, customer marketers expected to learn new tools and report on their ROIs and do much, much more things with tech. What do you think, or what do you see that we can anticipate with this change?
Well, and maybe it's just me, but I don't think this space needs 20 best of breed platforms to choose from. To me, it needs a platform that does it all, or at least does a lot of it. And stitching together a stack of solutions and learning multiple systems, especially when teams are streamlining and things, it becomes more than one person or even a team can do. And still have time to do their real job, which is customer marketing. So, kudos to companies like Base for the acquisition of Laudable, because that helps deliver insights from everyday conversations. It's a huge time saver. For those of you who have had to go digging through videos and searching for quotes that you need, to have a tool that'll go do that for you is just awesome. I do think there's going to be more consolidation and stronger interface as well as things continue to mature.
Great. And Amy, with all this AI talk, and we chatted a little bit today about this earlier, what do you think is going to make a real difference for customer marketers?
Well, so one thing I would urge you to do is whatever system you have, and I used Gemini, just even put in, how can AI and Gemini help customer marketing and advocacy? And I'm going to tell you, it has a very nice opinion about those things. And it will tell you about content generation and personalization, data analysis and insights. Gal was talking a little bit about how, a base is going to be, looks at your feedback. I love this idea because this is what AI is so great at doing, It's so great at looking at insights and feedback and then pulling it together for us so that we can make statements about the work we're doing. Because there's the importance of AI and for customer advocacy. It's really in two areas. One, it helps us do our job better, faster, from a content standpoint. We started to talk about that. Every transcript you've ever had, your base is acquisition of Audible, so you're getting the recordings right away, and then mining them for those keywords and those nuggets that can be used in social media and campaigns and sales decks. I mean, these are things that if you are a 1 or 2 person shop, even when on the workday side, when you have over 20 people doing it, there is literally, you're like, okay, this is a weekend and late night project. And suddenly you can do it part of your day. Now you're not needing the extra time. But the other key component of AI, and I believe we're still in a place where customer advocacy and marketing needs to justify its existence. Everybody needs to justify their existence. So to be using AI to consolidate data that we can present to show impact of what we're doing. So again, when you have a system like BASE, it means that all these activities, that data is being pulled together and synthesized. So there's a package that we can deliver. And then the other thing I would say the third part is, fortunately for us, AI does not replace that human relationship component. But what it will do, it will empower us with more choices and options for how we present things to our customers and how they can participate with us, as well as really create different kinds of content formats for each part of the customer journey. That elusive customer journey and those touch points.
And if I may chime in, just one more thing on that. I think when you think about how AI could help your role, I think every customer marketer and advocacy manager should ask herself or himself the simple question of, what am I spending time on? And then just bucket it, like write it on a paper, or write it in ChatGPT, doesn't matter. And then just say, okay, if I'm spending time on identifying advocates, how can AI help me solve that? There's ways to do that. If I'm spending time on writing content, how can AI help me solve that? If I'm spending time on showing reports and insights from my program to my manager, how can AI help me do that? So bucket these are the things I'm spending too much time on, or whatever it is, and start. There's nothing that AI can't help you, frankly. I mean, there is, not in your life and your job, but I mean, so just like think about what are those time suckers? There are ways that AI can help you, whether it's within a tool you use, or again, external tools that you can kind of purchase for sometimes just $20 a month, but it can help.
Absolutely. And then Tiffany, what's your take on this change?
Yeah, so one of the things that I think we haven't quite touched on is the budget restrictions. I think everybody is feeling that. There's teams are getting leaner, expectations are higher, and I think Gal mentioned it earlier that customer marketers are just trying to be more creative. So that whether that is AI or whether that is just looking at your tech stack and figuring out how you can simplify and really consolidate them, that should help with ensuring that the customer experience is not only more seamless, but it also solves many pain points along the way.
Great. And now let's talk about transitioning to a new solution. I know sometimes it's very overwhelming, looking daunting. So Tiffany, can you share from your own buying process and migration story?
I would love to. So I was actually working on a very successful program with Influitive, and we had to switch really quickly after the acquisition, and we were able to find base. So very happy to work with you guys when I did. But it was a very fast process, and it was something that we felt we didn't have a lot of opportunity to go out and really take a peek at all of them. But from the start, connecting with the base team, that was essential to us, making sure that we were able to work with a company that had dedicated CSMs. Rona, your name was thrown at me, and so I immediately said, I want Rona. If we're going to sign this, I want Rona. And you guys were, I
And
know,
you got Rona.
and we got Rona. But you guys are really true industry experts. I mean, just even listening to you today, I might be a panelist, but I'm also learning at the same time. And we felt very confident in the clear product roadmap you delivered and that investment behind the platform. You know, one of the things that was really important to us, and I've said this a few times before, but simplicity for both our customers and our business was key here. We were able to utilize not only the community part that I was focused on, but also that advocacy side, and it drove a much better journey and advocacy and loyalty program for our customers. So that's really kind of the full kind of summed up version of how me transitioning over was seamless. But I think I think it's one of those things that was really scary at first, ripping that Band-Aid off, but it's a much better program for everybody.
Thanks. And then Amy, when you look for a to change a program or for a new program, what do you look for in a platform?
Yeah, I think one thing, and this is just intensely practical. It starts with it starts with our policies around security and privacy. I mean, it has to. If a platform does not conform to those, it's a non-starter. So it is, and I would urge people who are looking to keep that in mind, right? Because we can tend to get really like we get very excited, like, oh my gosh, here's a solution. Like, here are our business needs. These folks have all these solutions, and reminding us that we're part of a larger organization, and that's going to be important. The other thing I look for is how it integrates with the other systems that we have. So whatever your CRM is, and for me, it's wherever I've worked, it's always been Salesforce. And so how well does it integrate with Salesforce, and what kind of support is needed there? Now, it doesn't matter if there's a lot of support, it's just from an expectation setting, so that as I am building a case for a solution, I have surfaced any kind of yeah buts or gotchas, so that I'm prepared with how we're going to address those. I think Tiffany was talking about very much, here are business problems I needed to that we need to solve. We need to do this quickly. So, of course, having a BRD, which is a business requirement doc, in which you're like, here are the challenges, right? The problems I'm trying to solve, and how do you solve them? And remembering, because we say this to our customers as advocates, when we're talking to them, they're like, oh, I wish your product did X and such. And they have an idea of how that needs to be. And then we know what we say back to them, which is like, well, it's not that we needed this feature. Here's the way you can get that accomplished. So as a buyer, we now have to be open to saying, it may not be the feature you're looking for, but it has to be able to solve the problem you want to be able to solve. And the other thing, that I'm looking for is, of course, and Tiffany brought that up. She's heard Rona, right? Like, we want to know who is going to be supporting us, right? Do we have a dedicated CSM? What's the health of, I mean, like we build communities, what's the health of the community for that platform? And, you know, who can we talk to? I'd also say, I do have a sort of an implementation bias in my head, and I want to understand the implementation methodology and how we're going to get there. I found in different sized companies, maintenance of my system has also been really important. So for example, am I going to need the Salesforce admin to also be the person who helps me maintain this? And if that is the case, I may rethink, and I have done this previously, rethink my decision, because I'm like, they're actually so driven by sales ops and by, you know, a quoting tool and a contracts tool and all these others, that if I needed to make changes in my system, I would be on the bottom of the list. So those to me are, they all factor in, and you also have to take into consideration, right, the culture of your company. Like for some people, yes, I could love it. If my Salesforce admin could do that, it would be perfect. They're all over this. For other places, no, I want our team to really be able to be the folks to administer it. And then, well, what resource will that take? How much time will that take for us?
I couldn't agree with you more. Absolutely. Awesome. And Stef, since you recently, or not so recently, went through the searching for a new tool, can you share with us a little bit about your buying cycle, the process, what made you consider switching a tool, and then ultimately why you chose Base?
Yes. Well, so we started looking because our Influitive platform was, again, purchased by another company that was in a different country. And that meant we couldn't just do a name change. We had to onboard them like a brand new vendor. And without developers left there who knew the product, I lost confidence that they'd be able to make it through some really stringent cybersecurity testing in place. I didn't have bandwidth for lots of, you know, a huge evaluation with lots and lots of companies. So as a team, we agreed to narrow the search to include companies that could deliver the same capabilities or solve the same problems and challenges that we had with Influitive, and also ideally do more. So the way I came up with a short list is it started with outreach to peers. Again, your peers know a lot, you know, and they're easy to find. There's all sorts of LinkedIn groups and all other things. And then I went to some vendor overviews. So Advocacy Maven, Captivate Collective, Referential, all of these vendors and more have their opinions of all the different players in the space. And it's just enormously helpful. I then kind of determined the two that I was, you know, that I thought we should look at. And I did some validation of recent reviews. And I think it's really important to focus on the word recent, because the world has, you know, kind of changed really fast. So I looked at recent reviews on G2 and PeerSpot and came up with two finalists that the team really then dove into a lot more deeply.
Great. And we have Steve is asking something. Steve, good to see you. Is asking a super relevant question about what was your selection criteria when you wanted to look for a vendor in the space?
So they first of all, we had to have confidence that they'd make it through the cybersecurity testing, because frankly, if they didn't, it didn't matter because they weren't going to get implemented. So that was huge for us. And there were some, yeah, we definitely had a feature list. I don't have that anymore because I'm not there, but there are plenty of people who were on my team that are on this call. And if you guys want to raise your hands, they can probably share. You know, in addition to the features, there are some intangibles, like, are you easy to do business with? Do I trust you when you say you can do something? Do you have enough backbone to say, no, we're not going to do that? And that's, you know, sometimes a no can be enormously credible, or can bring a lot of credibility, especially when you explain why. So those were things that came into play for me.
Awesome. Now looking into the future, Amy, for us vendors out here, providing platforms, what do we need to be thinking about when it comes to providing services to the entire community?
Yeah, so I feel like, it's sort of the flip side of the evaluation, right? So we are looking for vendors who have that credibility, who show us. And how do you develop credibility? So you do what we did as customer advocacies people, right? Which is you make sure that you have reviews in various places. You make sure that you've got the value proposition for both the larger organization and the smaller organization. I have really felt really strongly about this. Help me help you. I want to have, when I work with a vendor, I want help. I want decks and data from you to help me sell the solution internally. How do I get, vertical up the chain, up and down the chain support? How do I get horizontal support from my peers? To have that would make my sales cycle go easily. Both Stef and I talked about security and what a big piece is. Have all that ready, right? Part of selling it and selling it horizontally and getting the support is having those that documentation and that experience to speak to it. And then, and then I think it's standard thing, right? You want a partner, because that's how I would think of it, as a partner who is innovating, right? So you've done, like Base has done some acquisitions to make the offering more robust, to bring in more of the AI component, to make our jobs easier to do. The other thing I find really important, and wasn't not all people created equal this way, which is understand my business pain. Like when I talk to somebody and I say, well, I want this, and they literally don't get it, and I see it as table stakes, I'm like, I don't know if you understand what we do in our job, because this is pretty standard everywhere I've ever been. So it's making sure that there is domain expertise, so people understand what the pain is and how it is changing. Oh, I love the balloons, Tiff. Thank you.
Oh, that happened.
Perfect
Your hands
timing,
didn't even
too.
move. It was a spontaneous balloon. I love it. So to me, it's everything as a customer advocacy professional that you get from customers that you want to share to drive more impact in your business. And I joke, I'm like, oh yes, I'd love to have, not testimonials. I'd actually like to have, like customer ROI, like, you showed on your nice slide, right? This is what you've been able to do. So for me, those are the things to sort of keep top of mind.
Cool. And Steph, how do you transition away from past and looking into the future of customer-led growth?
Well, for one, we talked about earlier removing silos. And this one to me is a really big deal. Depending on your industry and your company size, you might have a campaigns team, product marketing team, regional marketing, global marketing, customer support, customer success, and others. And each of them needing to interact with customers. And often each of them have their own siloed approach. So have any of you, and I'm hoping I'm not the only one here, ever been in a meeting with people who should be your partners within your company, and all of a sudden they start sounding like those seagulls in Finding Nemo, where they're going mine, 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 and it's just, that stuff's got to stop. I think one way to do that, in a way that people, that's a little more embracing, is to identify where there's overlap, because there is overlap between these groups. They built up in silos, but it's usually not huge overlap. And start looking at who can address that overlap area in a more scalable approach, yet still delivering high quality, and let that group drive that piece. And the other group doesn't lose anything. They just gained more time to provide something that's even more strategic or more valuable to the customers. And I think once everyone can see that, it's a win, not only for within your company, but for your customers. And again, having a platform that easily connects to all these different systems, and ultimately, in a perfect world, can deliver a lot of them, just makes it easier to do that.
Definitely. And Tiffany, what does the future look like for those of us that want to do more with less?
Yeah, well, Steph nailed it. Alignment is essential. I mean, there's nothing that you can do better for your internal business or external customers without really aligning first. That cross-functional collaboration that she was mentioning, just really looking at how you have a shared customer engagement strategy, where those overlaps are, how you can simplify, ensure that seamless experience. And that not only will give you obviously great success, but the data and that data silo will go away, because that causes extreme friction. If a customer comes in and is asked this question over here, but then they're asked the same question over here and over here, it starts to get not only an annoyance for the customer side, but then the data can start looking different. Because over here, they might just go, I'm tired of being asked the same question. I'm just going to click whatever. And then it's not accurate. So if you have what you know is to be as close to the truth as you can, in one location, and you continue to build in one simplified tool, then that allows you to have a leading place for everybody to go to. And I know that both Amy and Steph touched on this exact same thing. It also simplifies and takes away some of that security issue. But I think that is truly where the future is, because as we've all mentioned, budget concerns, leaner teams, AI, we need to kind of have everything in one place. And for us, that was where Base came in and was a huge support. We were able to kind of look at the full customer journey of when they came in, what they're a part of, all the different communities that they are members of, and also where they've helped us in terms of advocacy or sharing on social platforms. And then you could go back and say, wow, this is a customer. I appreciate all that they've done. Look at their DNA and figure out how to do that across the board.
Amazing. And then with that, I'm going to stick with you, Tiffany, because I know that you're currently looking. So as customer marketers, what do we need to think about for our career moving forward?
Well, I think I think Amy actually touched on this earlier, but those of us who are kind of in that role of looking at maybe a career shift or what have you, is educate yourself on all of the different AI spaces. There are a lot out there, and knowing how to utilize them, because to the point of whenever you're going into a new role, knowing how you can use it to make sure you can do more with less is really what I think is a big key.
Great. Now, before we go into last words of advice from everybody, I want to hop into a few questions that we have from our participants. Jessica is asking, based on your experience, what was the implementation timeline from design to go live? Ooh, Tiffany, that's a great question.
I was
for you.
about to say, I don't think y'all want to know my answer because we pushed the limits. We had a insanely short timeline. Somehow it happened, but I think we did it in 2 months. It might have even been less. It might have been 5 to 8 weeks, somewhere in there. It's been a couple years now, but we really pushed the limits. So it is doable. It is possible, but I don't think that's the norm.
I'm seeing more and more that it is becoming the norm. I've seen some companies that we've migrated that have done it in less than 2 weeks. And some, like with the challenges of having, like internals and security and all the processes that we have to go through, it can take a little bit longer. Absolutely. Now, Erwin has a great question, and I love this question. 2-3 years ago, 90% of customer marketers were advocacy focused, 10% on life cycle. Now we're seeing more towards the 80-20. Where do you see this trend, going forward in the future?
Mhm.
And anyone can answer.
So I'll jump in on this one because I'm looking and seeing job postings, and what I'm seeing very little of are the customer advocacy roles, and a lot more in customer lifecycle marketing and customer marketing. But then when you start looking at the activities, it's all lifecycle marketing. It's I mean, there is advocacy in there, but it's so much broader now.
And just to add to that, so that's also my experience. But I will say that in a really large organization, they still are splitting it all out. So at an organization like Workday, it's like advocacy, and then the installed based marketing and all of those programs, upsell, resell, the webinars, they're on the demand gen team, because the expectation there is that you have and know how to use all of the tools around demand gen. Much less, like, there's not even a word of advocacy in that piece. And I think for me, for smaller organizations, I found myself much more having the opportunity to do referral marketing and upsell and cross sell. And though I 100% with Stef in saying I'm seeing much more on life cycle. And at one point in my LinkedIn profile, and this was like 2 years ago, I wrote a note of distinction because I was getting contacted for customer marketing jobs. And I was like, has anyone looked at my background? Like, right, like marketing is this, customer marketing or install-based marketing means this, and advocacy means this. I am thinking, yeah, having both. So I'm in one of those transition areas of like, oh, I did less of that.
Mm-hmm.
And for people coming up, I think it's, and in any event, I always think it's better to be a T-shaped marketer, right? I have done field marketing. I did do partner marketing. I have done demand gen, PR. I've done all of that in my career, because I do feel like it's very important to understand marketing people are some of our key stakeholders, and understanding what their business is about means being more T-shaped.
And I will just add a little bit to what you both said. The thing that I've seen, I think that's so important, is in the life cycle focused marketing, it's making sure we're not just always a reactive. Sometimes in experience and advocacy or loyalty, even people are just reactive. Whenever there's an issue, they want to come in and try and make sure that experience gets turned around and better. But in this life cycle focused marketing, what I've seen is we're looking at from the moment they find out about us, and how is that experience, and how can we make sure we're nurturing through the entire journey. And that is what really, I think, is the biggest difference and why that shift is making a big changeover.
And there's one question about how do you measure referral revenue? It kind of goes together. How do you measure referral revenue in a tool? So before I pass this on to you, I just want to say, and Tiffany, you talked about this a little bit, about the consolidation, right? Companies are looking to consolidate the tools, the tech stack and everything around. I would recommend looking for a tool that can do it all, right? The advocacy, the upsells, the expansion, the cross-sells, and also the referral, and keep it all under one platform. Anything anybody wants to add to that? Okay, so with that, let's do a last word of advice from our wonderful panelists. Amy, do you want to go first? Oh, you're on mute.
I'm looking at Umesh's note. I just wanted to see what that says. Yes. Yes, Umesh, I would also agree with that. I do believe it is more of the trend. So I think just from a last minute note here, one thing is, recently I've met a bunch of practitioners, and where I think, and it's really easy. I think it's really easy to get sort of siloed in your thinking, or think you have just one piece of the pie. And I think as a customer advocate and marketer, we have insights into our customers that other people don't. And I would encourage people to get understand and be versed and excel in the tactics, and then take that higher so that you understand the strategy and you take yourself into understanding the entire customer experience, that you look at what we do in a more holistic fashion. And I also have seen that really almost every company pays lip service minimally. They might do more, but lip service to the importance of the customer experience, customer satisfaction, and being customer centric. Very few of them have operationalized that, and very few of them have that, and through integration of that, since I'm not able to say another word, to bring it into the culture. And I think that also puts us in a position to be that customer-centric culture champion, and be strategic in the company, and get that executive buy-in directly from that, and be proactive. Oh, I heard you talk about this when you were talking, executive, or you say it to your executive. It was a CEO, you say it to the CMO or your senior VP or whoever it is. Here are some of what my ideas are on how advocacy can help do that.
Great advice. Tiffany, what's your advice?
I think if you are still looking at getting buy-in from the top, one of the things that we looked at is how many touch points, and we've vaguely brushed over this in this call, but really looking at all those touch points and how you can simplify it, because sometimes if you're touching that, if you're hitting customers up too many times, especially with the same thing, you will run into fatigue. And so really look at what you can simplify, what you can bring in, what you can consolidate. And that's really what I feel like was going to get you over that, that point of going, it just makes sense. It's going to save us money, and it's going to help align our internal teams. And not only that, but it's also going to keep our customer from getting that fatigue.
Absolutely. And Steph, last words of advice.
Yes, a couple. Things are changing fast, and embrace the change. Um, Learn what other things are out there and what you can do to innovate to deliver the best experience you can to your customers and deliver the most value you can deliver to your stakeholders. And understanding, being able to document the value your program delivers, and value, not just stuff you're doing, but the actual value, making sure everybody's aware, map it to their goals, map it to your stakeholders' goals. Showing how you delivered against your own goals is good, but showing how you helped your stakeholders achieve their goals is way better.
Absolutely. Chia, anything you want to add?
Honestly, I mean, I just saw Jennifer's note on, loving this panel of women's voice. I think that's so important. I think going back to what everyone has said about breaking silos, working together, really, allowing us to be more collaborative and just being more open and transparent, I think is really great. So last words of advice is don't be afraid of the changes. I think everyone can be the rising tide. Everyone can just, I guess, tap into this network, tap into this community to learn better together and build a better future for us. So yeah. What about yours, Rona? I would love to hear yours too.
Wow, mine, don't be afraid to make mistakes. You gotta try. What's the worst that can happen, right? You'll get a no, you'll get a fail, but you'll learn something for life. So definitely don't be afraid and take chances. And with that, I want to thank everybody on this call, all our wonderful participants for the great questions and the wonderful feedback, and to Amy and to Steph and to Tiffany for sharing your insights, and for Chia for putting this all together for us. So big round of applause, and thank you so, so much for everything.
Yeah,
Thank
thank you
so
for
much,
having it.
everyone. Have a great
Yes,
day.
thanks.
Have a wonderful day,
Thank
everyone.
you.